The modest suburban home in San Diego sat peacefully in the evening light when three black SUVs rolled silently up the street, headlights dimmed. Inside, cartel members whispered confidently among themselves. This was supposed to be a simple job. The single mother, a quiet elementary school teacher, would be an easy target to pressure her brother into compliance. What they didn't know was that this unassuming woman had a past she'd buried deep, a past forged in the shadows of international espionage. As the men crept toward her door, one thing was certain: they were about to make the biggest mistake of their lives. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The leader of the group, a scarred man named Diego, signaled for silence as they approached the modest two-story house. The street was quiet, with only the distant sound of crickets and the occasional car passing by. 4 men fanned out to cover the exits, while 2 others moved toward the front door, their weapons concealed beneath dark jackets. Through the window, they could see Sarah Chen grading papers at her kitchen table, completely unaware of their presence, or so they thought. Sarah's keen senses had already picked up on the subtle signs of danger: the unusual silence of the neighborhood dogs, the reflection of movement in her window, the faint crunch of boots on gravel. 10 years of CIA field operations had taught her to notice these things, even if she'd tried to leave that life behind. Her daughter Emma was at a sleepover, thank God. Sarah continued grading papers, maintaining her cover, while her mind raced through scenarios and options. Diego watched from the shadows as one of his men picked the lock with practiced ease. The door swung open silently, and the group moved inside with practiced precision. Sarah looked up, feigning surprise as the men entered her kitchen. Her hands trembled convincingly as she clutched a red pen, playing the role of the frightened teacher perfectly. "Ms. Chen," Diego said smoothly, his accent thick with menace, "we need to have a conversation about your brother Michael." He stepped closer, towering over her at the kitchen table. "He's been causing some problems for our organization, and we think you might be able to help us. Persuade him." Sarah's eyes darted around the room, noting each man's position, weapons, and stance. Her CIA training kicked in automatically, 2 by the door, 1 covering the back, 3 more outside, all armed with concealed handguns. Diego carried a knife in his boot, obvious from his gait. Their movements suggested military training, but their lack of proper tactical spacing betrayed their overconfidence. "Please," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling perfectly. "I haven't spoken to Michael in months. I don't know anything about his work." She stood slowly backing away from the table, appearing to cower but actually moving into a better tactical position. "I'm just a teacher. I have a daughter." Diego's face hardened. "That's exactly why you'll help us. Your brother has something that belongs to us. You're going to call him right now and tell him to return it. Otherwise—" He gestured to one of his men, who pulled out a phone and showed her a photo of Emma at school. "Well, let's just say teaching isn't a very safe profession." The threat to Emma changed everything. Sarah had promised herself she'd never return to her old life, but they'd crossed a line. Her trembling stopped, her posture shifted subtly, and her eyes took on a dangerous gleam that Diego missed completely. "You're right," Sarah said softly, reaching for her phone on the table. "I'll call him." As Diego stepped closer to hand her a piece of paper with instructions, Sarah made her move. In one fluid motion, she grabbed his extended arm, using his own momentum to slam him face first into the table. Before the others could react, she had already relieved Diego of his weapon and taken down 2 more men with precise, economical movements. The remaining men scrambled to draw their weapons, but Sarah was already moving. She vaulted over the kitchen counter, using it as cover as she fired 2 precise shots, disabling their weapons without killing them. Her CIA training emphasized minimal casualties when possible. "What the hell?" one of the men shouted, as Sarah seemed to materialize behind him, taking him down with a precise strike to a pressure point. The last man standing tried to radio for backup, but Sarah's thrown knife pinned his sleeve to the wall before he could reach his earpiece. Outside, the 3 men heard the commotion and rushed toward the house. Sarah dragged Diego's unconscious form behind the counter, using him as a shield as she assessed her options. The kitchen had limited exits, but she'd prepared for situations like this. She reached under the sink, pulling out a hidden go-bag containing additional weapons and equipment. The men outside were coordinating, trying to surround the house. Sarah could hear them communicating in Spanish, discussing their approach. She smiled grimly. They still thought they were dealing with a scared teacher. Time to show them how wrong they were. Sarah moved through her house like a shadow, her movements precise and practiced. She'd chosen this house specifically for its defensive capabilities, though she'd hoped never to need them. The first man through the back door went down silently, caught in a precision chokehold. The second found himself tangled in nearly invisible wire that Sarah had strung across the doorway months ago, just in case. The third man was more cautious, but it didn't help him. Sarah used her knowledge of the house's layout to outmaneuver him, appearing seemingly out of nowhere to disarm him with a series of swift, efficient strikes. Her CIA combat training had emphasized quick, quiet takedowns, and she performed them flawlessly. Diego regained consciousness to find himself zip-tied to a kitchen chair, his men either unconscious or similarly restrained around the room. Sarah stood before him, no longer playing the role of the frightened teacher. Her stance was different, her eyes cold and professional as she checked her weapon with practiced ease. "I have some questions," Sarah said, her voice calm and controlled. "And you're going to answer them. Not because I'll hurt you, I won't, but because once I explain exactly who you've just attacked and what that means for your organization, you'll realize that cooperation is your only viable option." Diego spat blood onto the floor. "You think this changes anything? The cartel will send more people. We'll find your daughter, your brother." Sarah cut him off by placing a phone on the table between them. On its screen was a live feed showing Emma sleeping peacefully at her friend's house, with 2 heavily armed security personnel visible in the background. "Those men work for me," Sarah explained quietly. "They're ex-CIA, like me. They've been protecting Emma since the day she was born. As for Michael..." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Did you really think it was a coincidence that my brother, who works for the DEA, happened to stumble onto your operation?" Diego's face paled as the implications sank in. Sarah leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "This wasn't a random kidnapping attempt. This was a trap, and you walked right into it. Now let's talk about your boss, El Coyote, and his new partnership with the Chinese triads." The night stretched on as Sarah methodically extracted information from Diego, building a clearer picture of the cartel's operations. She sent encrypted messages to her old CIA contacts, setting in motion events that would dismantle the organization's infrastructure. By dawn, she had everything she needed. After securing the prisoners for pickup by her DEA contacts, Sarah cleaned her house meticulously, removing all traces of the fight. She had just finished when her phone buzzed. Emma was on her way home. Sarah looked around her kitchen, now back to its appearance of peaceful domesticity, and allowed herself a small smile. She had hoped to leave her old life behind, to be nothing more than a teacher and mother. But she had always known this day might come, had planned for it meticulously. The cartel had made a crucial mistake. They had threatened her family. Now they would learn why Sarah Chen had been the CIA's top operative in Asia, and why even years after leaving the agency, certain people still spoke her code name in whispers. Emma would be home soon, expecting nothing more than breakfast with her mom, and that's exactly what she would get. But for Sarah, the game was back on, and she had no intention of losing. Sarah's kitchen was eerily quiet in the aftermath of the night's chaos. The morning sun filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the floor where, just hours ago, cartel members had lain unconscious. She sipped her coffee, mind racing through contingency plans while waiting for Emma to return. The sound of a car pulling up made her tense, but it was just as expected. Her daughter's friend's mother dropping Emma off. "Mom!" Emma burst through the door, her backpack bouncing against her back. "You won't believe what happened at the sleepover." The 13-year-old's eyes sparkled with excitement, completely unaware of the night's events. Sarah embraced her daughter, inhaling the familiar scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. "Tell me everything, sweetheart." She guided Emma to the kitchen counter, placing a plate of fresh pancakes in front of her while listening to animated tales of midnight snacks and ghost stories. As Emma chatted, Sarah's trained eyes caught movement outside, a black sedan passing by too slowly. She activated her phone security app, confirming her suspicions. The cartel was already watching the house. They weren't going to wait long before making another move. "Emma, honey," Sarah interrupted gently, "how would you feel about visiting Aunt Claire in Vancouver for a while?" Emma's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "But school's not over for another 3 weeks." "I know, but Aunt Claire's been asking to see you and—" Sarah's phone buzzed with an encrypted message. Her heart froze as she read it. The cartel hadn't just been after Michael's DEA investigation. They were pursuing something much bigger. Something from Sarah's past. "Pack a bag, sweetie. Just the essentials." Sarah's tone left no room for argument. Emma, picking up on her mother's tension, nodded and hurried upstairs. Sarah moved swiftly through the house, retrieving hidden caches of equipment she'd hoped never to need again. Behind the laundry room's false wall panel, she found her old field kit, documents, currencies, weapons, and burner phones. Under the master bathroom's tiles, a laptop containing encrypted files from her CIA days. Each cache brought back memories of operations in Beijing, Moscow, Tehran, places where she'd been someone else entirely. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The sound of breaking glass shattered the morning calm. Sarah was moving before the first shard hit the floor. "Emma, bathroom now!" she shouted, already racing up the stairs. A smoke grenade bounced off the wall, filling the hallway with thick grey clouds. Sarah reached Emma's room just as armed men began pouring through the broken windows. She grabbed her daughter, pulling her into the master bathroom and sealing the reinforced door. Emma's eyes were wide with fear and confusion. "Mom, what's happening?" "Remember those emergency drills we used to practice?" Sarah pulled up the bathroom tiles, revealing a narrow passage. "This is just like that. Everything's going to be okay." The passage, built when Sarah had first bought the house, led to the neighbor's basement. Elderly Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, who weren't just retired school teachers as everyone believed. Joyce Patterson had been Sarah's handler in the CIA for 15 years. As they crawled through the narrow space, the sounds of men breaking down doors echoed above them. Emma remained silent, her years of emergency drills kicking in. Sarah had always framed them as a game, but she'd made sure her daughter knew exactly what to do in situations like this. They emerged in the Pattersons' basement to find Joyce already waiting, a secure satellite phone in hand. "They're not just Cartel, Sarah," she said without preamble. "We've identified Chinese MSS agents among them. This is about Beijing." Sarah's blood ran cold. Beijing, her last operation before leaving the CIA, the one that had gone terribly wrong. "How did they find me?" "Your brother's DEA investigation accidentally uncovered a joint operation between the cartel and Chinese intelligence. When they traced it back to him, they found you." Joyce handed Sarah a tablet showing surveillance. "Photos. They think you still have it." "Have what?" Emma asked, her voice small but steady. Sarah looked at her daughter, seeing not just her child but a young woman who deserved the truth. "Something I took during my last mission. Something that could expose a lot of dangerous people." She turned to Joyce. "The failsafe protocol." Joyce nodded. "Already in motion. Claire's waiting in Vancouver, but Sarah, you can't run forever. Not from this." "I don't intend to." Sarah checked her weapon, then retrieved a small USB drive from her boot, one of many hidden throughout her clothing. "Emma goes to Claire. I'm going to finish this." "Mom, no!" Emma grabbed her arm. "Don't leave me." Sarah knelt before her daughter, seeing in her face the same strength she'd had to find within herself at too young an age. "Listen to me carefully. Everything I've done, everything I'm about to do, is to keep you safe. But I can't do that. If I'm worried about you being in danger, I need you to be strong for me, okay?" Emma's lower lip trembled, but she nodded. Sarah pulled her into a fierce hug, memorizing every detail of this moment. "I love you more than anything in this world. Never forget that." Joyce's phone buzzed. "Incoming. Multiple vehicles." Sarah quickly helped Emma into the hidden panic room behind the Pattersons' bookshelf. "Mrs. Patterson will take you to Aunt Claire. I'll come for you as soon as it's safe." She pressed a small pendant into Emma's hand. "If anyone but me comes for you, they need to know what's engraved on the back of this. It's our secret code." As the panic room sealed shut, Sarah turned to Joyce. "I need everything you have on the Beijing operation, all of it. Already compiled." Joyce handed her another encrypted drive. "Sarah, the MSS agent from Beijing, Chen Wei, he's running this operation personally." Sarah's expression hardened. Chen Wei, the man who had nearly killed her in Beijing, who had murdered her partner and friend. "Good. It's time we finished what we started." The sound of vehicles screeching to a halt outside spurred them into action. Joyce moved to her surveillance station while Sarah checked her weapons. The cartel might have thought they were dealing with a retired CIA agent, but they were about to learn why Sarah Chen had been the agency's most effective operative in Asia. "South exit is clear," Joyce reported. "But Sarah, whatever you're planning, Remember what happened last time you faced Chen Wei? He's not just skilled, he's obsessed. He's been hunting you for 5 years. Last time, I was following CIA protocols. Sarah loaded her weapon with practiced efficiency. This time, I'm a mother protecting her child. He has no idea what that means. The first explosion rocked the house's foundation. They were using breaching charges, trying to enter from multiple points simultaneously. Sarah moved to the basement's hidden exit, then paused. "Joyce, if I don't make it, you'll make it." Joyce's voice was firm. "But yes, I'll make sure Emma knows everything. The truth about her father, about Beijing, about you. No, go make sure I don't have to have that conversation." Sarah nodded once, then disappeared into the hidden tunnel, just as the basement door burst open. Above her she could hear men sweeping the house, their shouts mixing with the sound of breaking furniture and shattering glass. She emerged 2 blocks away, in a garage belonging to another former CIA contact. A motorcycle waited, already prepped for her escape. But Sarah wasn't running. Not this time. Chen Wei wanted to find her. Fine. But this time, she would be the one setting the trap. As she sped through the suburban streets, Sarah's mind was already formulating a plan. Chen Wei believed she still had proof of his betrayal, of his deal with the cartels. He didn't know that she'd already set things in motion 5 years ago, that dead drops all over the world contained encrypted files ready to be released. All she needed was to get to one of them. Then Chen Wei, the cartels, all of them would learn what happened when they threatened a mother's child. Sarah Chen hadn't just been a CIA agent, she'd been a ghost, a shadow, a weapon pointed at America's enemies. Now she was something far more dangerous, a mother with nothing left to lose. The motorcycle roared as she accelerated onto the highway, leaving behind the quiet suburban life she'd built. Ahead lay danger, violence, and a reckoning years in the making. But Sarah smiled beneath her helmet. She was done hiding. It was time to become the nightmare they'd forgotten she could be. The sleek motorcycle wove through traffic as Sarah headed toward downtown San Diego, her mind racing faster than the engine beneath her. The morning sun cast long shadows between the buildings, but she wasn't admiring the view. Through her helmet's heads-up display, she monitored the vehicles around her, particularly the black SUV that had been tailing her for the past 10 minutes. Chen Wei's men were good, but they weren't good enough. Sarah had spent years in the field perfecting the art of surveillance detection, and now those skills were coming back as naturally as breathing. She took a sharp turn onto a narrow side street, then another, leading her pursuers exactly where she wanted them. The industrial district loomed ahead, a maze of warehouses and abandoned factories. Sarah had chosen this location carefully. It was one of several fallback positions she'd prepared years ago, back when she'd first moved to San Diego. The warehouse ahead looked abandoned, its windows broken and walls covered in graffiti, but appearances were deceiving. She pulled into a loading dock, the motorcycle's engine echoing off the concrete walls. As soon as she dismounted, the floor beneath her began to descend, a hidden elevator taking both her and the bike down to a secure underground facility. Above, she could hear cars screeching to a halt as her pursuers arrived. The basement facility hummed to life as she entered, motion sensors activating lights and systems that hadn't been used in years. Along one wall, a bank of monitors displayed feeds from cameras throughout the building and surrounding streets. Another wall held an arsenal that would have made her old CIA quartermasters proud. Sarah quickly changed into tactical gear, her movements precise and economical. Each piece of equipment she selected had a purpose, chosen from years of experience in the field. As she worked, her mind drifted to a mission in Kazakhstan, where she'd learned the hard way about the importance of proper preparation. The memory was interrupted by movement on the monitors. Chen Wei's men were entering the building, moving. In tactical formation, Sarah counted 12 operatives, all heavily armed. Their movements confirmed her suspicions. These weren't cartel thugs, but trained MSS agents. Among them, she recognized faces from her past operations in Asia. Then she saw him, Chen Wei himself, entering last, his scarred face instantly recognizable. He moved with the same predatory grace she remembered from Beijing, where he'd nearly killed her. The scar along his jaw, her parting gift from that encounter, stood out starkly under the warehouse lights. "Still leading from the rear, Chen?" Sarah muttered, activating her comms. The encrypted channel crackled to life, connecting her to an old friend. "I'm in position," a familiar voice responded. Marcus Torres, her former CIA partner, now working private security. "You sure about this, Sarah? These guys aren't playing around." "They threatened my daughter, Marcus." Sarah's voice was cold as she checked her weapons one final time. "Playing around isn't on my mind right now." She could hear them searching the upper floors, their movements growing more frustrated as they found nothing. Chen Wei would figure it out soon enough. He knew her too well to think she'd lead them here without a plan. Sarah moved to a specific section of wall, placing her palm against a hidden scanner. A door slid open silently, revealing a narrow maintenance tunnel. She'd spent months mapping these tunnels, learning every junction and access point. Now that knowledge would help her even the odds. "They're splitting up," Marcus reported. 4 teams of 3, covering all sectors. Chen Wei's staying on the main floor with 2 guards. Sarah smiled grimly. "Perfect. Time to remind them why they used to call me the Ghost." She moved through the tunnels like a shadow, her footsteps silent on the concrete. The first team never saw her coming. A flashbang. Grenade disoriented them long enough for her to take them down with precise, non-lethal strikes. The CIA had trained her to kill, but Sarah had always preferred to avoid unnecessary casualties when possible. The second team was more alert, but it didn't help them. Sarah used the building's old sprinkler system to her advantage, creating a diversion that left them vulnerable. Within moments, they too were unconscious, their weapons disabled and communications cut. "Southeast team is getting suspicious," Marcus warned. "They're heading toward your position." Sarah was already moving, using the ventilation system to traverse the building silently. She emerged behind the third team just as they discovered their unconscious comrades. The fight was brief, but intense. These men were better trained, but Sarah had something they didn't: the desperate determination of a mother protecting her child. As she secured the last unconscious agent, a slow clap echoed through the building. Chen Wei's voice, still carrying that same smug confidence she remembered from Beijing, filled the space. "Impressive as always, Agent Chen. Or is it Ms. Chen? Now?" The quiet suburban mother, hiding in plain sight. His words carried through the building's PA system. "Did you really think I wouldn't find you eventually?" Sarah didn't respond, already moving through the shadows toward his position. Chen Wei continued, his voice taking on a harder edge. 5 years I've been hunting you, 5 years since you stole those files and disappeared. Did you think I'd just forget? That I'd let you live your peaceful little life after what you did? You killed my partner, Sarah finally responded, her voice echoing from multiple speakers, masking her location. You betrayed everything you claimed to stand for, and now you're working with cartels. How far you've fallen, Chen. She could see him now, through a gap in the walls. He stood in the center of the main floor, his 2 guards scanning the shadows. His scarred face twisted in a sneer. Your precious CIA was no better. They were willing to sacrifice everything, and everyone, for their objectives, just like they sacrificed your husband. Sarah's movements faltered for just a moment. Michael's death had been ruled an accident, a random mugging gone wrong, but she'd always suspected. Oh, yes. Chen continued, clearly noting her silence. Did you really think it was a coincidence? He was getting too close to something he shouldn't have seen, just like you did in Beijing, just like your brother is doing now. Sarah's mind raced. Michael's death, her brother's DEA investigation, Beijing? It was all connected. Chen Wei hadn't just found her by chance. This had been his plan all along. The difference is, Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the revelation, I'm not the same person you knew in Beijing. Back then, I was an agent following orders. Now? She emerged from the shadows, her weapon trained on Chen Wei's head. Now I'm a mother, and you threatened my child. The 2 guards spun to face her, but Marcus's shots rang out first, disarming them with precise fire. Chen Wei didn't flinch, his eyes locked on Sarah. You won't kill me, he said confidently. You need me alive to prove what happened in Beijing, to clear your name. Sarah's laugh was cold. You still don't understand. I don't care about clearing my name. I care about keeping my daughter safe. The files you're looking for, they're already out there, scheduled for release to every major intelligence agency in the world in about, she checked her watch, 20 minutes. Chen Wei's confidence finally cracked. You're bluffing. Am I? Why do you think I let you find me? Why do you think I chose today? Sarah's smile was predatory. Check your phone. Check any phone. It's already starting. Chen Wei's hand trembled slightly as he pulled out his phone. His eyes widened as he saw the notifications flooding in. Across the globe, encrypted files were being unlocked, revealing years of corruption, betrayal, and murder. His entire network exposed. Impossible, he whispered. A mother's love makes the impossible possible, Sarah replied. I spent 5 years building this life, making sure Emma would be safe. Did you really think I wouldn't have a plan to protect her from people like you? Chen Wei moved with sudden violence, drawing a hidden weapon. But Sarah was already moving, her reactions honed by years of training and sharpened by maternal instinct. Her first shot knocked the gun from his hand. The second brought him to his knees. The CIA taught me to be a weapon, Sarah said quietly, standing over him. But being a mother taught me to be a protector. That's something you never understood. We don't need to kill to win. We just need to make sure our children are safe. As sirens wailed in the distance, Sarah activated her final contingency. Throughout the building, hidden speakers began playing a recorded confession. Chen Wei's own voice, captured in Beijing 5 years ago, admitting to every betrayal, every murder, every deal with the cartels. Checkmate, Sarah whispered as FBI teams breached the building. Everything had been coordinated through Marcus and her old CIA contacts. Chen Wei and his entire network would be taken down, not through violence, but through the careful, patient planning of a mother determined to protect her child. As she watched the FBI lead Chen Wei away, Sarah's phone buzzed with a message from Joyce. "Emma's safe. Claire says hi. Come get your daughter, Ghost." Sarah smiled, finally allowing herself to relax. She had faced her past, protected her future, and shown that a mother's love was the deadliest weapon of all. It was time to go home, not to hide anymore, but to live openly, proudly, as both the CIA agent she had been and the mother she had become. Sarah stood at the private airstrip outside San Diego, watching as FBI agents processed the last of Chen Wei's captured operatives. The morning's events felt surreal, like something from her old life bleeding into her new one. But this wasn't over. The cartel would retaliate once they realized their Chinese partners had been compromised. "Your flight to Vancouver's ready," Marcus said, approaching with a tablet in hand. "But you should see this first." He showed her surveillance footage from a cartel compound near the Mexican border. Dozens of armed men were mobilizing, loading weapons into vehicles. "El Coyote isn't going to let this go," Sarah mused, studying the footage. "He's lost too much face with his Chinese partners." She thought of Emma, safe in Vancouver, but still too close for comfort. "Change of plans. I'm not going to Vancouver yet." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Sarah, the cartel knows where my sister lives, Marcus. They'll find Emma eventually." Sarah checked her weapons with practiced efficiency. "It's time to end this, permanently." The FBI's Special Agent Richardson approached, his expression grave. "Ms. Chen, we can't officially sanction any operation on Mexican soil. However," he handed her a thick envelope, "this contains everything we have on El Coyote's operation. What you do with it is, of course, entirely up to you." Sarah smiled grimly. The FBI knew they couldn't touch El Coyote through official channels. Too much politics, too much corruption. But an ex-CIA operative acting independently, that was different. "I'll need transportation," she said to Marcus. "Something fast, something untraceable. Already arranged." He led her to a nearby hangar, where a sleek black helicopter waited. "Your old friend Amanda from Delta Force sends her regards. She says you still owe her for Kabul." Sarah's mind flashed to that mission in Afghanistan, where Amanda had saved her life at great personal risk. "Tell her this makes us even." The helicopter would get her close to the border, but from there, she'd be on her own. As she prepared for takeoff, Sarah called Joyce one last time. "How's Emma?" "Safe, but worried about you," Joyce replied. "She's stronger than you think, Sarah, just like her mother." Sarah swallowed hard. "Tell her. Tell her Mom's taking care of one last thing. Then we're going somewhere new, somewhere safe, just the two of us." "Where will you go?" Sarah thought of the small island in Thailand she discovered during a mission years ago. Somewhere beautiful, somewhere she can grow up without looking over her shoulder. The helicopter lifted off as the sun began to set, heading south, toward the Mexican border. Sarah used the flight time to study the intelligence files, memorizing compound layouts and security patterns. El Coyote's main base was a fortress, but she'd breached worse places during her CIA days. As they approached the border, Sarah's mind wandered to her early days in the agency. Her instructor had told her something she'd never forgotten. The strongest weapon isn't your gun or your training. It's your reason why. Find something worth fighting for, and you'll be unstoppable. Back then, she'd fought for her country, for abstract ideals of justice and security. Now, she fought for something far more precious, her daughter's future. The helicopter touched down in a remote area 5 miles from the border. Sarah quickly gathered her gear: lightweight body, armor, specialized weapons, and advanced surveillance equipment. Some were from her CIA days, others acquired through Marcus's connections. "Remember," Marcus said through her earpiece, "you got no backup down there. If things go wrong—" "They won't," Sarah replied firmly. "El Coyote thinks he's hunting me. He doesn't realize he's the prey." She moved through the darkness like a ghost, years of training making her virtually invisible. Border sensors and patrols were easily avoided. She'd studied their patterns thoroughly. Within an hour, she was deep in Mexican territory, approaching El Coyote's compound from the least expected direction. Straight through the mountains everyone thought were impassable. The compound sprawled across a hidden valley, its defenses impressive but not impenetrable. Sarah observed through high-powered optics, noting guard patterns and security measures. El Coyote had spared no expense: motion sensors, infrared cameras, armed patrols with dogs. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd designed his defenses to stop armies, rival cartels, or government raids. He hadn't prepared for a single operator. With CIA training and a mother's determination, Sarah accessed the encrypted files from Richardson, focusing on the compound's power systems. Like many remote facilities, they relied on their own generators. Those generators needed fuel, and fuel lines could be compromised. Moving silently through the underbrush, Sarah approached the compound's fuel storage area. The guards were alert, but predictable in their movements. She timed her approach carefully, placing small charges at strategic points, not to destroy, just to cause chaos when needed. Next came the communications array. Sarah couldn't disable it entirely without alerting security, but she could introduce subtle interference that would hamper coordination during critical moments. As she worked, Sarah remembered another lesson from her CIA days. The perfect operation isn't about overwhelming force. It's about making the enemy defeat themselves. By midnight, everything was in place. Sarah had created what her old tactical instructor called a cascade failure, a series of small problems that would compound into catastrophic failure under pressure. She triggered the first charge remotely, a small explosion at the fuel depot, nothing catastrophic, just enough to draw attention and resources. Guards rushed to investigate, leaving other areas understaffed. Sarah was moving before the first shouts of alarm faded. She slipped through the gaps in security, using the confusion to penetrate deeper into the compound. More small charges detonated, at precise intervals, each drawing guards away from her true objective, El Coyote's private quarters. The cartel leader's paranoia worked in her favor. He'd installed so many layers of security that in an emergency, his own men couldn't reach him quickly. Sarah, however, had memorized every route, every bottleneck, every blind spot. She encountered 4 guards outside his reinforced door. They were elite, well-trained, but they were expecting an assault from the outside, not a shadow that materialized. From within their own security perimeter, the fight was brief but intense. Sarah moved like water, each strike precise and economical. Non-lethal takedowns. She'd promised Emma long ago that she'd never kill unless absolutely necessary. El Coyote was waiting when she breached the door, A desert eagle pointed at her head. "I knew you'd come," he said, his voice cold. "The famous ghost, the CIA's best assassin." "Former CIA," Sarah corrected, noting his stance, his grip on the weapon. "And I was never an assassin. I was something far more dangerous, a protector." "And what are you protecting now, Ghost? Your daughter?" He smiled cruelly. "Did you think we wouldn't find her in Vancouver? Your men are already in FBI custody," Sarah interrupted. "The ones who aren't are too busy dealing with multiple fires, failing communications, and what they think is a full-scale assault on their compound. You're alone, Coyote, just like you've always been." His finger tightened on the trigger, but Sarah was already moving. Years of training took over, a fluid combination of CIA combat techniques and the fierce instincts of a mother protecting her child. The fight was brutal, but brief. When it ended, El Coyote lay unconscious, his own handcuffs securing him to his desk. Sarah accessed his computer, downloading files that would expose every corrupt official, every dirty deal, every secret that had kept him in power. "It's done," she spoke into her encrypted radio. "Package is ready for pickup." Within minutes, the sound of helicopters filled the air, not cartel reinforcements, but a joint DEA Mexican Federal Police task force. Sarah's brother Michael had coordinated everything, waiting for her signal. As she watched from the shadows, law enforcement swarmed the compound. El Coyote's empire crumbled not through violence, but through the careful planning of a mother who'd used every skill, every lesson, every resource to ensure her daughter's safety. Sarah slipped away as the sun began to rise, making her way to a predetermined extraction point. Her phone buzzed with a message from Joyce. "Emma's asking when you're coming. She says she found a seashell you need to see." For the first time in days, Sarah smiled. She'd done what the CIA, the FBI, and every law enforcement agency had failed to do, not because she was better trained or better equipped, but because she had the strongest motivation of all, a mother's love. The black helicopter appeared. "Right on schedule, Marcus at the controls. Next stop, Vancouver." Sarah nodded, finally feeling the weight lift from her shoulders. Vancouver. Then Thailand. "I know a perfect little island where a girl can grow up collecting seashells without ever having to look over her shoulder." As they flew north, Sarah reflected on how her life had changed. She'd gone from CIA operative to suburban mom to something entirely new, a mother who'd used every skill she'd learned to forge a safe future for her child. It wasn't the life she'd planned, but it was better. It was real. Emma was waiting, and this time Sarah wouldn't have to hide who she was. She could be both the ghost and the mother, the protector and the nurturer, because in the end, that's what being a mother meant, using everything you are to protect everything you love. The helicopter touched down at a private airstrip outside Vancouver, its blades slowly coming to a stop in the crisp Canadian air. Sarah's heart raced with anticipation. After days of intense combat and calculated strikes against her enemies, she was finally moments away from reuniting with Emma. But as she stepped onto the tarmac, Marcus's urgent voice crackled through her earpiece. "Sarah, we've got movement. Multiple vehicles approaching from the south. They're not local law enforcement." Sarah's instincts kicked in immediately. El Coyote's organization might be crumbling, but he had allies, powerful ones who wouldn't let their investments disappear without a fight. They must have had backup plans, contingencies she hadn't accounted for. "How many?" she asked, already moving toward the hangar where Joyce was supposed to be waiting with Emma. 3 SUVs, heavily armed. They've got military-grade equipment. These aren't cartel thugs. They're professionals, private military contractors. Maybe. Sarah's mind raced. PMCs meant serious money, serious connections. Someone higher up the food chain was making a play. Get me a secure line to Agent Richardson. We need to know who's bankrolling this. The hangar doors were open, revealing Joyce's silver Mercedes. Emma sat in the back seat, nose buried in a book, so much like her father, finding calm in literature even in the midst of chaos. Joyce stood guard, her posture revealing the training that had made her one of the CIA's top handlers. "Change of plans," Sarah announced, reaching the car. "Joyce, take Emma to the secondary location. I'll handle our visitors." Emma looked up, her eyes widening. "Mom, you promised we'd stay together!" The words hit Sarah like physical blows. She had promised, had sworn to herself that she wouldn't leave Emma again. But if these men were who she suspected, she needed to end this now, permanently. "Sweetheart," Sarah knelt by the car door, taking Emma's hands in hers. "Do you remember what I taught you about promises?" Emma nodded solemnly, that sometimes keeping the spirit of a promise is more important than keeping the letter of it. "Exactly. I promised to protect you, to keep you safe. Sometimes that means making hard choices." Sarah pulled her daughter close, breathing in her familiar scent. "I need you to be brave for me one more time. Can you do that?" Emma's chin trembled, but she nodded. "Like you were brave in Beijing." Sarah froze. "How did you—" "I found your old journals," Emma admitted. "The ones hidden in the false bottom of your jewelry box. I know what you did, Mum. I know you saved all those people." A mix of emotions flooded Sarah. Pride at her daughter's cleverness, concern about what she'd learned, and something else. Hope. Maybe she didn't have to hide anymore. Maybe her daughter was ready to understand. "Those people coming," Sarah said carefully. "They're like the bad men from my stories. But I'm not running from them anymore. I'm going to show them what happens when they threaten a mother and her child." Emma's eyes shone with understanding and determination. "Then I want to help." "Emma," Joyce began, but Sarah held up a hand. "Actually," she said, a plan forming, "maybe you can." She pulled out her phone, quickly accessing a secure app. "Remember those coding lessons we did? The ones you thought were just for fun?" Emma's face lit up. "The ones where you taught me about encryption and network protocols?" "Exactly. These men are relying on their communication systems. Think you can put those lessons to use?" For the first time since this began, Emma smiled, a fierce, proud expression that reminded Sarah so much of herself. "Just give me your laptop." Sarah quickly set Emma up in the hangar's secure office, Joyce standing guard. As her daughter's fingers flew across the keyboard, Sarah prepared for battle. But this time was different. This time, she wasn't just fighting as a former CIA operative. She was fighting alongside her daughter, each using their unique skills. "First vehicle's comms are down," Emma reported triumphantly. "Their encrypted channels are experiencing some technical difficulties." Sarah couldn't help but smile. She'd trained her daughter well, disguising complex cybersecurity lessons as games and puzzles. Emma had inherited her mother's quick mind and her father's analytical skills. "Marcus," Sarah spoke into her comm, "I need a distraction. Something." Big. Already on it. Remember that favorite trick of yours from Morocco? Sarah's smile widened. The Morocco operation had been one of her most successful, using the enemy's own security systems against them. Emma, honey, think you can access their vehicle's security protocols? Already done, Mom. Their fancy military-grade SUVs are connected to a central network. Pretty sloppy security, actually. That's my girl. Sarah moved into position, watching through her scope as the three vehicles approached. On my mark, activate their emergency protocols. All of them. The timing had to be perfect. As the SUVs reached the airstrip's main entrance, Sarah gave the signal. Instantly, all three vehicles went into emergency shutdown, their doors automatically locking, trapping the occupants inside. At the same time, Marcus triggered a series of precisely placed charges, creating a wall of harmless but impressive-looking explosions that cut off their escape route. Their backup communications are scrambled, Emma reported. I'm feeding false orders to their team leaders. They think they're under attack from multiple directions. Sarah moved like a shadow through the chaos, systematically neutralizing any mercenary who managed to escape their vehicles. Her movements were precise, efficient, but now they carried an additional purpose. She wasn't just fighting to win. She was showing her daughter that strength could be controlled. That power came with responsibility. Mom! Emma's voice was urgent in her earpiece. I found something in their communications. These aren't just mercenaries. They're working for someone named Alexander Kane. Sarah's blood ran cold. Alexander Kane, one of the CIA's most notorious former operators, now running a private military empire. He'd worked with Chen Wei in Beijing, had been part of the conspiracy that had cost so many lives. Emma, access file Delta 7 from my secure server. Send it to every major news outlet and intelligence agency. Now. The insurance file? Emma asked, understanding dawning in her voice. The one you've been saving? Yes. Kane thought he could hide behind his mercenaries, but he forgot the most important rule. Never threaten a mother who knows your secrets. As Emma worked her technological magic, Sarah confronted the last of Kane's men. These weren't cartel thugs or common mercenaries. They were trained operators, skilled in multiple combat disciplines. But they weren't fighting for anything, except money. Sarah was fighting for something far more precious. The battle was intense, but brief. Sarah moved with a fluid grace that combined her CIA training with a mother's fierce protective instinct. Each strike was calculated, each movement precise, but there was something new in her fighting style, a consciousness that her daughter was watching, learning, understanding. When it was over, Kane's men were subdued, their communications in shambles, their operation exposed to the world. Emma's computer work had not only disabled their systems, but had traced their connections back to Kane's entire network. The insurance file, evidence Sarah had gathered about Kane's illegal operations, was now in the hands of every major law enforcement agency. Sarah returned to the hangar office, where Emma sat surrounded by screens showing the chaos she'd created in Kane's organization. Joyce stood nearby, an impressed smile on her face. "That was amazing, Mom," Emma exclaimed. "The way you moved, the way you knew exactly what they would do." Sarah knelt beside her daughter. "You were pretty amazing yourself. Those coding skills saved lives today." "We did it together," Emma said proudly, "like a real team." Sarah pulled her daughter close, feeling the last walls between her past and present finally crumble. Yes, we did. And from now on, that's how it's going to be. No more secrets, no more hiding who we are. Joyce's phone buzzed with updates. Kane's organization was imploding as the evidence spread. His accounts were frozen, his operations exposed, his allies abandoning him, all because he'd made the mistake of threatening the wrong mother and daughter. "Ready to go home?" Sarah asked Emma. Emma looked thoughtful. "That island you mentioned, the one in Thailand, does it have good internet? Because I've got some ideas about upgrading our security systems." Sarah laughed, a full, genuine laugh that carried all the joy and pride she felt. "The best. And while we're there, maybe I can teach you a few more tricks, both physical and digital." As they boarded their flight to Thailand, Sarah reflected on how much had changed. She'd started this journey trying to protect Emma from her past, but in the end, it was their shared strength, mother and daughter, each using their unique skills, that had truly kept them safe. The sun was rising over Vancouver as their plane took off, heading toward a new life. But this time, it wasn't an escape. It was a beginning. A chance for Sarah to be both the warrior she'd been trained to be and the mother she'd always wanted to be. And most importantly, a chance for Emma to grow up knowing that true strength comes not from hiding who you are, but from embracing it fully and using it to protect what matters most. 3 months had passed since Sarah and Emma had settled into their new life on the Thai island of Koh Chang. Their beachfront villa, disguised as a modest vacation home, housed a state-of-the-art security system that Emma had helped design. Mother and daughter had fallen into a comfortable routine, morning combat training on the beach, followed by advanced encryption lessons, all while maintaining the cover of a digital nomad family. But on this particular morning, as Sarah watched, Emma practicing her martial arts forms on the sand, her secure satellite phone buzzed with an alert she'd hoped would never come. The message was brief. "Kane escaped custody. He knows where you are." Sarah's first instinct was to run, to grab Emma and disappear to one of their backup locations. But as she watched her daughter execute a perfect spinning kick, she realized something had changed. They weren't victims running from danger anymore. They were warriors who faced it head-on. "Emma," Sarah called out, "remember that contingency plan we discussed? The one about turning defense into offense?" Emma's eyes lit up with understanding. At 13, she'd grown not just in height but in capability, combining her mother's strategic mind with her own technological brilliance. "The honeypot protocol?" Sarah nodded. "Kane thinks he's hunting us. Let's show him what happens when he walks into a trap designed by 2 generations of Chen women." They moved quickly but calmly, implementing the security protocols they'd spent months perfecting. Emma went to her command center, a converted beach house filled with cutting-edge computers and communication equipment. Sarah contacted their network of allies, people she'd helped during her CIA days, who now formed a global web of support. "Marcus," Sarah spoke into her encrypted line. "Kane took the bait. How long until he reaches Thai airspace?" 6 hours, maximum. He's got a team of 20 with him. Ex-special forces, all of them. They're good, Sarah. "But they're not fighting for anything except money," Sarah replied, watching Emma's fingers fly across her keyboards, setting their trap. "We're fighting for something more." Emma had grown into her role naturally, combining her youth's intuitive understanding of technology with the strategic thinking Sarah had taught her. She'd created an intricate digital web around the island, monitoring every approach by air, sea, or land. "Mom!" Emma called out. "I've got their communications protocols. They're using a new quantum encryption system, but—" She grinned proudly. "I already found 3 back doors." Sarah felt a surge of pride. Her daughter hadn't just learned to defend herself. She'd learned to think like a strategist, to see patterns where others saw chaos. "Show me what you've got." Together, they refined their plan. It wasn't just about confronting Kane. It was about ending this threat permanently, about showing the world what happened when you threatened a family of warriors. "Their first team will come by sea," Emma explained, pointing to her monitors. 6 boats, trying to look like local fishing vessels, but look at their heat signatures. The infrared images showed the hidden weapons and equipment clearly. "And the second team?" Sarah asked, testing her daughter's analytical skills. "High-altitude drop, probably around midnight. They think they're being subtle, but—" Emma pulled up another screen, showing a complex web of sensor data. "They'll trigger our new pressure grid the moment they land. Plus, I've already hacked their oxygen systems." Sarah studied the plans, adding her own tactical expertise to Emma's technical brilliance. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were evolving, creating a new kind of family legacy. As the sun set over the ocean, Sarah and Emma made their final preparations. The villa's innocent appearance now concealed a sophisticated battlefield, every inch covered by overlapping systems of defense and counterattack. "Remember Beijing?" Sarah asked as they checked their equipment one last time. Emma nodded. "When you saved those children from the trafficking ring, you said sometimes the best way to win is to let the enemy think they're winning." Exactly. Kane expects to find a mother and daughter hiding in fear. Instead, he's going to find something he's never faced before, a family that fights together. The first sign of Kane's approach came just after midnight. Emma's systems detected the boats while they were still miles out, their supposedly stealthy approach revealed by the sophisticated sensor network she'd woven through the surrounding waters. "Right on schedule," Emma announced from her command center, "initiating Phase 1. Sarah watched with pride as her daughter's fingers danced across multiple keyboards, executing their plan with precision. The attacking boat's navigation systems suddenly went haywire, their encrypted communications filling with ghost signals and false orders. "They're splitting up," Emma reported, her voice steady and professional. "Just like we predicted, the first team is heading for the South Beach." Sarah moved silently through the darkness, her movements fluid and practiced. She'd positioned various surprises along the beach, non-lethal but highly effective countermeasures that would demonstrate exactly who they were dealing with. The first team hit the beach in textbook formation, their night vision equipment giving them confidence. In the darkness, that confidence lasted exactly 30 seconds before Emma triggered her first surprise, a series of electromagnetic pulses that rendered their expensive equipment useless. "Second team is dropping now," Emma's voice came through Sarah's earpiece. "Their chutes are deploying, but— Oops." There was a hint of mischief in her voice. "Looks like their navigation systems are having some issues." Sarah watched as the parachuting team scattered, their carefully planned landing zone turning into chaos as Emma's hacked systems fed them conflicting data. None of them were injured. That wasn't the point. The point was to show them they weren't in control. "Kane's getting nervous," Emma reported. "His heart rate's spiking. The biomonitors in their tactical gear are very informative." Sarah moved through the chaos like a ghost, systematically neutralizing threats with precision strikes. These weren't the brutal takedowns of her CIA days. These were calculated moves designed to demonstrate mastery and control. One by one, Kane's elite teams found themselves outmaneuvered and overwhelmed, not by superior numbers or firepower, but by the seamless combination of Sarah's tactical expertise and Emma's technological wizardry. "Mom," Emma's voice carried a note of urgency. "Kane's changed tactics. He's coming in personally by helicopter. But—" She paused, and Sarah could hear the smile in her voice. "He really shouldn't trust those autopilot systems." The sound of rotor blades filled the night air as Kane's helicopter approached. But instead of landing on his chosen spot, the aircraft, gently but firmly, diverted to the beach landing zone Emma had selected, right into Sarah's waiting trap. Kane emerged from the helicopter, his face twisted with rage as he realized how completely he'd been outmaneuvered. His elite teams were incapacitated, his communications were compromised, and his reputation was in tatters. "Impossible," he snarled as Sarah stepped out of the shadows. "You're just one woman." "No," Sarah replied calmly. "I'm a mother, and my daughter is even more impressive than I am." As if on cue, every screen and device in Kane's possession lit up with evidence of his crimes. The same evidence that was now being transmitted to law enforcement agencies worldwide. Emma had not only defeated his security, but had used his own network to expose him. "It's over, Kane," Sarah said. "You came here expecting to find victims. Instead, you found something you never understood, the strength of a family that fights together." The sound of approaching helicopters filled the air, not Kane's backup, but Thai special forces, accompanied by Interpol agents. Sarah had coordinated everything through her old networks, ensuring that Kane's capture would be completely legal and thoroughly documented. As Kane was led away in handcuffs, Emma emerged from her command center, standing proudly beside her. "Mother." They watched the sunrise together, no longer hiding who they were. "Think they'll learn?" Emma asked, gesturing to the defeated mercenaries being loaded into transport vehicles. Sarah put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. "They'll learn what I learned. That true strength isn't about weapons or tactics or even skill. It's about what you're fighting for. And nothing in this world is stronger than a mother and daughter who fight together." The morning sun painted the ocean gold as Sarah and Emma walked back to their villa. They had faced their enemies not just with strength and skill, but with intelligence and precision. They had shown the world that family wasn't a weakness to be exploited, but a strength that could overcome any threat. "So," Emma said with a grin, "same time tomorrow for training?" Sarah laughed, feeling truly free for the first time in years. They weren't running anymore, weren't hiding. They had built something new, a family legacy of strength, intelligence, and unbreakable bonds. "Same time," she agreed. "After all, we've got a lot more to teach each other." As they reached their home, Sarah looked at her daughter. No longer just a child to be protected, but a partner in their shared journey. They had faced their past, overcome their present, and now stood ready to embrace whatever the future might bring, knowing that together they were unstoppable. Life on Ko Chang had settled into a rhythm for Sarah and Emma, but their peace was about to be tested in ways they never expected. 6 months after Kane's capture, Emma's advanced security systems detected an unusual pattern in global intelligence. Chatter, Someone was methodically hunting down former CIA operatives, particularly those who had worked in Asia. Sarah found Emma in her command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing data streams and surveillance feeds. At 14, Emma had grown into a formidable intelligence analyst, combining her mother's instincts with her own digital expertise. "Mom," Emma said without looking up, "I found something. The attacks aren't random. They're following a pattern. Your pattern. Every operative being targeted was connected to your last mission in Beijing." Sarah studied the data, her mind racing. The Beijing operation had been more significant than even the CIA knew. She'd uncovered a network of corruption that reached into the highest levels of multiple governments. Chen Wei and Kane had been just the tip of the iceberg. "There's more," Emma continued, pulling up another display. "I've been monitoring the dark web. Someone's offering a billion-dollar bounty for information about a project called Oracle." Sarah's blood ran cold. Oracle, the code name for a quantum AI system she discovered in Beijing, one capable of predicting and manipulating global events. She'd thought she'd destroyed it, but if someone was hunting for it now... "We need to move," Sarah began, but Emma held up a hand. "Actually, Mom, I have a better idea." Emma's fingers flew across her keyboards, bringing up a complex network diagram. "Look at this. The people hunting the Oracle. They're leaving digital fingerprints, amateur moves. They want us to run, to reveal ourselves." Sarah felt a surge of pride mixed with concern. Her daughter wasn't just following in her footsteps, she was blazing her own trail, combining her mother's tactical thinking with a profound understanding of the digital world. "What are you suggesting?" Emma's eyes sparkled with determination. "We set a trap, but not like before. This time we use their hunt for Oracle to expose their entire network. We show them what happens when they underestimate not just one, but 2 generations of Chen women." Sarah considered the plan. It was bold, dangerous, and exactly what she would have suggested at Emma's age. But this time, they had advantages she never had: Emma's technological brilliance, their combined experience, and a network of allies they'd built together. "Marcus," Sarah called through their secure line, "we need a favor." "Already on it," Marcus replied. Joyce picked up the same chatter. "She's mobilizing our old team. But Sarah, these people, they're not like Kane or the cartels. They're something new." "No," Sarah corrected, watching Emma coordinate with their global network of allies through encrypted channels. "They're something old, people who think power comes from control. We're going to show them where real power comes from." They spent the next week preparing, transforming their island home into something unprecedented. A fusion of old-school espionage and cutting-edge technology. Emma's command center became the heart of a global intelligence operation, while Sarah trained their allies in the physical aspects of their plan. "The key," Sarah explained to their assembled team, "isn't just stopping them. It's showing the world what they're really after. The Oracle wasn't just a predictive system. It was proof of how deep the corruption goes." Emma had crafted a digital maze, a series of false leads and hidden traps that would lead their hunters exactly where they wanted them. Sarah had trained their defenders in techniques that combined her CIA experience with Emma's innovative approaches. The first attack came at dawn, a coordinated strike from multiple directions. But this time, they weren't just ready. They were waiting. "Grid Sector 7, Emma announced calmly as hostile forces approached their shores. activating countermeasures now. Sarah watched with pride as her daughter's systems came to life. The attackers' sophisticated equipment suddenly turned against them, their own technology becoming their greatest weakness. Communications failed, weapons malfunctioned, and carefully planned assaults dissolved into chaos. "They're splitting up," Emma reported, her fingers dancing across multiple interfaces. "Just like we predicted, the main force is heading for the decoy facility." Sarah moved like a shadow through the jungle, coordinating their defenders. These weren't just mercenaries or ex-military. These were elite operators backed by some of the most powerful people in the world. But they had made one crucial mistake. They thought they were hunting a former CIA operative and her teenage daughter. Instead, they had stumbled into a trap years in the making. Every step they took revealed more of their own organization, their digital signatures tracked and traced by Emma's sophisticated systems, their physical movements recorded and analyzed by Sarah's tactical network. "Mom," Emma's voice carried a note of excitement. "I found it, the command center. It's in Singapore, hidden in plain sight." Sarah processed this information as she disabled another team of attackers. Singapore, where she'd first discovered hints of the Oracle project. Everything was connecting. "Execute Protocol Phoenix," Sarah ordered. Emma's fingers flew across her keyboards, initiating a sequence they'd prepared for just this moment. Across the globe, secured servers activated, releasing carefully selected information to key individuals and organizations. The hunters suddenly became the hunted. "Their entire network is lighting up," Emma reported with satisfaction. "Every attempt to stop the information release just exposes more of their infrastructure. They're doing exactly what we expected, trying to use their quantum systems to contain the breach. And in doing so," Sarah added, "proving exactly what we suspected about who they are and what they've been doing." The attack on their island turned into a rout as the hostile forces realized they'd been outmaneuvered on every level. But Sarah and Emma weren't done. This wasn't just about defending themselves, it was about ending the threat permanently. "Time for Phase 2, Sarah announced. Emma nodded, initiating their masterstroke. The Oracle program hadn't been destroyed. In Beijing, it had been modified, transformed by Emma's coding genius into something its creators never intended. Instead of predicting events to control them, it now exposed attempts at control. "Signal received from Singapore," Emma reported. "They took the bait. They're trying to activate their version of Oracle to counter ours." Sarah smiled grimly. "Show them what happens when they try to control the future." The results were spectacular. Every attempt by their opponents to use their predictive systems backfired, exposing more of their network. Emma's version of Oracle wasn't just a program, it was a mirror, reflecting their own methods back at them. "Multiple arrests being reported worldwide," Emma announced, reading from her feeds. "Singapore, Beijing, London, New York." "Mom." It worked. The entire network is collapsing. Sarah watched as their plan unfolded across the globe. The organization that had thought itself powerful enough to control the future was being dismantled by a mother and daughter who understood that true power came from working together. As the sun set over their island sanctuary, Sarah and Emma stood on their beach, watching the last of their allies depart. They had faced a threat greater than any before, not just with strength and skill, but with wisdom and innovation. "You know," Emma said thoughtfully, They never understood what made us different. They thought power came from predicting and controlling the future. Sarah nodded, putting an arm around her daughter's shoulders. But we know better. Real power comes from shaping the future together, from building something stronger than any one person could create alone. Their island home stood peaceful once again, but it was different now. It wasn't just a hiding place. It was a beacon, a symbol of what could be accomplished when different generations brought their strengths together. So, Emma grinned, pulling up a holographic display from her wrist computer. Ready to see what other innovations I've been working on? Sarah laughed, feeling the deep joy of watching her daughter grow into her own power while staying true to their shared values. Show me. After all, the future belongs to those who dare to shape it together. As they walked back to their command center, Sarah reflected on their journey. They had overcome every threat not just because they were strong or skilled, but because they understood something their enemies never could, that the strongest force in the world wasn't technology or tactics or even intelligence. It was the bond between a mother and daughter who dared to face the future on their own terms. 1 year after dismantling the global conspiracy that threatened them, Sarah and Emma Chen faced an unexpected challenge. Emma, now 15, had been accepted into an elite international technology program in Tokyo. It wasn't just any program, it was a gathering of the world's brightest young minds, working on cutting-edge artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. Sarah stood in Emma's command center, watching her daughter pack up her equipment. The room that had once been their tactical headquarters now felt different, a reminder that their relationship was evolving. Emma wasn't just her student anymore. She was becoming her own person. "The program's security checks out," Emma said, not looking up from her packing. "I ran every possible analysis. It's legitimate, sponsored by some of the biggest tech companies in Asia." Sarah nodded, but something nagged at her instincts. "That's what concerns me. After what we exposed last year, a lot of powerful people lost everything. This could be a trap?" Emma finished, finally meeting her mother's eyes. "Mom, I know. That's exactly why I applied." She pulled up a holographic display showing complex data patterns. "Look at these enrollment algorithms. Someone's specifically selecting students with certain skills. Skills that look a lot like what we used against the Oracle network." Sarah's eyes narrowed as she studied the data. Her daughter wasn't just being recruited for her talents. Someone was assembling a team. "You think they're trying to rebuild Oracle?" "No," Emma smiled, her eyes sparkling with the same determination Sarah had seen in the mirror countless times. "I think someone's trying to build something worse, and they're using gifted kids to do it." The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. A new generation of operatives trained from childhood, their natural talents shaped into weapons. It was exactly what she'd fought against her entire career. "We can't let them succeed," Sarah said quietly. "We won't," Emma replied. "But this time, we do it differently. Not from the outside, from within. I go in as exactly what they expect. A brilliant but naive student. Meanwhile, I coordinate with our network," Sarah finished, already seeing the plan forming. "We expose them before they can exploit any of these children." The next few weeks were a flurry of preparation, but different from their previous missions. This wasn't about weapons or combat techniques. This was about preparing Emma to be something she'd never been before, vulnerable. The key, Sarah explained during one of their strategy sessions, is to let them think they're succeeding. Let them believe they're shaping you into what they want. Emma nodded, absorbing every detail, while actually gathering evidence of everything they're doing. But Mom, what if there are others like me there, kids who see what's happening but don't know how to fight it? Sarah felt a surge of pride at her daughter's concern for others. Then you help them, carefully. Remember what I taught you about building networks. Trust is earned slowly, Emma recited, but loyalty is built through actions, not words. The day Emma left for Tokyo was harder than any mission Sarah had ever faced. Watching her daughter walk through airport security, appearing to all the world like any other excited teenage student, Sarah felt both fierce pride and intense concern. But Emma wasn't alone. Sarah had spent years building a network of allies, and now that network was focused on protecting not just Emma, but all the students in the program. Marcus coordinated surveillance from a safe house in Osaka, while Joyce worked her diplomatic connections to gain official access to the program's facilities. Emma's first week at the Tokyo Institute of Advanced Technology revealed exactly what they'd suspected. Under the guise of education, the program was identifying and cultivating specific talents: pattern recognition, systems analysis, predictive modeling. The same skills that had made Oracle so dangerous. They're smarter this time, Emma reported. Through their secure channel. They're not building one central system. They're creating a network of human operators, each trained to be a piece of something bigger. Sarah processed this information as she coordinated with their team. How are the other students responding? Most don't see it yet, Emma replied. But there's a group, 5 of us, who've noticed patterns. We're careful, but we're watching, learning. This was what Sarah had trained her daughter for, not just to fight, but to lead, to show others that they weren't powerless against those who would use them. The breakthrough came 3 weeks into the program. Emma discovered that the Institute's director, Dr. Tanaka, was receiving funding from a shadow organization composed of former Oracle supporters. But more importantly, she found something they hadn't expected: resistance within the Institute itself. "Mom!" Emma's voice was excited during their secure call. "Dr. Yuki, my quantum computing professor? She's been trying to expose this for months. She has evidence, but she needs help getting it out safely." Sarah immediately recognized the opportunity and the risk. "Are you sure we can trust her?" "I used those techniques you taught me. Observing patterns, testing reactions. She's genuine. And Mom, she knew Dad. She worked with him before." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Michael's death had never been fully explained, but if Dr. Yuki had known him. "Be careful," Sarah warned. "But if she's legitimate, work with her. Show her what the Chen women can do." Over the next month, Emma built a careful alliance within the Institute. Not just with Dr. Yuki, but with other students who had begun to question the program's true purpose. She taught them what Sarah had taught her: how to observe, how to resist subtly, how to build strength through unity. "They're not just trying to rebuild Oracle," Emma reported during one secure session. "They're trying to create something they call Project Legacy, a way to identify and control the next generation of global leaders, starting with us." Sarah's response was immediate. "Upload everything you have. I'm initiating Protocol Sunrise." Protocol Sunrise was something they'd developed together, a way to expose corruption while protecting the innocent. It wasn't enough to just reveal the truth. They had to ensure that the students and legitimate teachers wouldn't be harmed in the process. The operation came together like a perfect storm. As Emma and her allies gathered evidence from within, Sarah's network moved to position key players. Journalists received anonymous tips, regulatory agencies found suspicious financial trails, and diplomatic pressure began to mount. The final confrontation wasn't violent. It was something far more powerful. During a global symposium where the Institute was supposed to showcase their students' achievements, Emma and her fellow students revealed the truth. Not through accusations or exposed documents, but through their own projects. One by one, the students demonstrated how their assigned projects could be misused for control and manipulation. They showed the hidden patterns, the subtle conditioning, the ways they were being shaped into unwitting tools. Dr. Tanaka tried to shut down the presentation, but it was too late. Emma's network had ensured that everything was being broadcast live to educational institutions worldwide. The student showcase became a masterclass in resistance and awareness. "We are not your legacy," Emma declared, her voice carrying the strength Sarah had helped her develop. "We are our own future, and we choose to use our gifts for freedom, not control." The aftermath was spectacular, but controlled. Sarah's network ensured that the evidence reached exactly the right authorities. The corrupt elements of the Institute were exposed and removed, while the legitimate educational programs were preserved. More importantly, Emma and her fellow students had learned something precious: the power of standing together against those who would use them. They had formed bonds that would last a lifetime, creating their own network of brilliant young minds committed to using their skills for good. When Emma finally returned home to their island, she was different, stronger, more confident, but also more compassionate. She had faced a different kind of challenge and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. "You know," Emma said as they sat on their beach watching the sunset, "I finally understand what you've been teaching me all these years. It's not just about being strong or smart or skilled." Sarah looked at her daughter, seeing not just the child she'd protected, but the leader she'd become. "What is it about?" "It's about choosing who you want to be," Emma replied. "About using whatever gifts you have to protect others from becoming weapons. About showing people they have the power to choose their own legacy." Sarah pulled her daughter close, feeling the deep pride of seeing Emma become something more than just a reflection of her own strength. Together, they had faced physical threats, digital dangers, and now the subtle corruption of young minds. Each challenge had made them stronger, not just as individuals, but as a family. As the stars began to appear over their island home, Sarah realized that their greatest victory wasn't in defeating their enemies. It was in showing others how to find their own strength, their own voice, their own way to fight back against those who would control them. The Chen women had become more than just survivors or warriors. They had become beacons of hope, showing others that true power comes not from controlling the future, but from empowering each person to shape their own destiny. 18 months after the Tokyo incident, Emma's global network of gifted students had evolved into something unprecedented. They called themselves the Legacy Initiative, reclaiming the name that had once been meant to control them. From their island base, Emma coordinated with brilliant young minds across the world, using their combined skills to protect others from exploitation. Sarah watched her daughter, now 16, conducting a virtual meeting with team members from 6 different countries. The command center had transformed again, becoming a hub for positive change rather than just defense. Holographic displays showed ongoing projects, everything from exposing corporate corruption to protecting environmental whistleblowers. "We've got movement in Shanghai," announced May, one of Emma's closest allies from the Tokyo program. Her image flickered above Emma's workstation. Someone's recruiting gifted children again, but this time they're targeting orphanages. Emma's fingers flew across her keyboards, bringing up data streams and surveillance feeds. Pattern match with what we saw in Buenos Aires last month. Same psychological profiling algorithms. Sarah stepped forward, studying the data. Her CIA instincts, honed by years of experience, recognized something darker. This isn't just recruitment. Look at the medical screening requirements. Emma zoomed in on the documentation, her expression hardening. They're not just looking for intelligence. They're looking for specific genetic markers. "Mom, this is human enhancement," Sarah finished grimly. "They're trying to create their own version of Oracle, but this time through genetic manipulation." The implications were horrifying. Someone was trying to create enhanced humans, starting with gifted orphans who had no one to protect them. It was the ultimate form of exploitation, using children's bodies as well as their minds. "Not on our watch," Emma declared, her voice carrying the same steel Sarah had used in her CIA days. "Team, initiate Protocol Guardian. This ends now." Sarah felt a surge of pride as she watched the Legacy Initiative snap into action. These weren't just talented kids anymore. They were a coordinated force for good, using their skills to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. "Dad's research," Emma said suddenly, pulling up encrypted files. "Before he died, he was investigating genetic enhancement programs in Asia. That's why they killed him, isn't it?" Sarah nodded slowly. She'd always known this day would come, when Emma would understand the full truth about her father's death. He discovered something called Project Prometheus, a program to create enhanced humans who could interface directly with AI systems, like living versions of Oracle. Emma breathed, her mind racing ahead. But he stopped them. "He tried," Sarah corrected softly, "but he died before he could expose them. I've spent years trying to find the proof he discovered, but now we have something they never expected," Emma finished. "A network of gifted people who chose to use their abilities for protection instead of power. The Legacy Initiative moved with precision that would have impressed Sarah's old CIA team. May's group in Shanghai began tracking the orphanage recruiters. Emma's European allies started unraveling the financial networks supporting the program. Meanwhile, their South American team coordinated with local authorities to protect potential targets. "Mom," Emma called out, her voice urgent, "I found something in Dad's old files, a location, a research facility in the mountains outside. Shanghai. The dates match his last known movements before." Sarah moved to her daughter's station, studying the coordinates. The facility was supposedly abandoned, but recent satellite imagery showed subtle signs of activity. "This is it. This is where they killed him. And where they're taking the children now," Emma added, overlaying transportation data. "We can't just shut this down. We need to end it permanently." Sarah recognized the look in her daughter's eyes, the same determination she'd felt when facing her own demons. But this was different. This wasn't just about revenge or justice. This was about preventing history from repeating itself. "We do this smart," Sarah said. "We do this together." The plan came together with a complexity that reflected both generations. Of Chen women, Sarah's tactical experience merged with Emma's technological innovation, creating something entirely new. The Legacy Initiative became their eyes and ears. May's team in Shanghai provided ground-level intelligence. European hackers disrupted the facility's security systems. South American contacts arranged transportation and support. "They'll be expecting someone to come," Sarah noted during their final planning session. "But they won't be expecting us to come from within." Emma smiled, pulling up profiles of facility staff. "Already handled. 3 of our initiative members got jobs there last month. Low-level positions, but enough to give us eyes inside. And Mom. One of them found Dad's old lab. It's still there, sealed off, but intact." Sarah's heart tightened. Michael's lab, where he'd discovered the truth about Project Prometheus, where he'd tried to save children from being turned into living weapons. Now their daughter was going to finish what he started. The operation began at dawn. While the Legacy Initiative created digital chaos, false alarms, scheduling conflicts, communication disruptions, Sarah and Emma approached the facility through the mountain paths Michael had once walked. "Security systems are in disarray," Emma reported, monitoring feeds through her advanced tablet. "Our people inside have confirmed 12 children in the testing wing. No active experiments yet. We got here in time." Sarah moved like a shadow through the facility's halls, Emma close behind. Years of training together meant they barely needed to communicate, each anticipating the other's movements perfectly. The first real resistance came at the entrance to the research wing. Guards with military-grade weapons, clearly expecting trouble. But they weren't expecting trouble from their own security systems. Emma's fingers danced across her tablet, and suddenly the guards' communications filled with false orders. Emergency lights began flashing in distant sections of the facility. Security doors opened and closed randomly. "Mom," Emma whispered, pausing at a junction. "Dad's lab, it's through there. The children are being held 2 levels down, but—" Sarah understood. This wasn't just about saving the children. This was about finding the truth, about finishing what Michael had started. "Split up. You get the kids. I'll find the proof." Emma nodded, her face showing both concern and determination. "Be careful. Our inside people report heavy security around the lab section." "You too," Sarah replied, touching her daughter's shoulder. "Make your father proud." They separated, each moving with purpose. Sarah headed toward Michael's lab, while Emma descended toward the holding cells. The Legacy Initiative continued their digital assault, keeping the facility's security forces scattered and confused. Michael's lab was exactly as Emma's contact had described, sealed behind heavy security doors, untouched since the day he died. Sarah's CIA training made short work of the locks, and then she was inside. The lab was a time capsule. Michael's notes still lay on his desk, his coffee cup still sat in its place. But Sarah wasn't here for memories. She moved quickly to his hidden safe, the one he'd told her about in their last conversation. Inside, she found what Michael had died protecting. Not just evidence of genetic manipulation, but proof of who was behind it. Government officials, corporate leaders, military commanders, all part of a conspiracy to create a generation of enhanced humans they could control. "Mom," Emma's voice came through their secure channel. "I've got the children, all safe, but we've got company. They know we're here." Sarah quickly photographed and transmitted Michael's evidence to the Legacy Initiative's secure servers. "Get the children out. I'll meet you at the rendezvous point." As alarms finally began blaring throughout the facility, Sarah felt a strange sense of completion. She and Emma weren't just saving lives, they were fulfilling Michael's last mission, protecting children from those who would turn them into weapons. The escape was chaos, but controlled chaos. Every security measure the facility threw at them was met with countermeasures from the Legacy Initiative. When guards approached, they found their weapons mysteriously malfunctioning. When doors locked, they opened moments later. Sarah reached the rendezvous point to find Emma already there, surrounded by wide-eyed children and their loyal inside operatives. The youngest child couldn't have been more than 6, the oldest barely 13. "Let's go home," Sarah said softly, looking at these children who had so nearly become victims of the same forces that had killed Michael. As their extraction teams arrived, a mix of Legacy Initiative members and Sarah's old CIA contacts, Emma pulled up a final display on her tablet. Across the world, the evidence they'd recovered was being released. Project Prometheus was being exposed, its supporters identified, its victims saved. "Dad would be proud," Emma said as they boarded the helicopter. "Not just of what we did, but of who we've become." Sarah looked at her daughter, then at the children they'd saved. Emma had grown into something remarkable. Not just a fighter or a leader, but a protector of the next generation. "He would be proud of all of us," Sarah replied, "of what we've built together." The Legacy Initiative had become more than just a network of gifted young people. It had become a force for change, a way to ensure that no child would ever be used as a weapon again. As they flew away from the facility, Sarah thought about how far they'd come. From a mother and daughter in hiding to the leaders of a global movement for protection and positive change. They had turned their pain into purpose, their challenges into strength. The sunrise painted the mountains gold, promising a new day and a new chapter in their story. But this time, they weren't running from the past or fighting for survival. They were building a future where children could be safe to grow, learn, and choose their own paths. 2 years after shutting down Project Prometheus, the Chen Women's Island Sanctuary had transformed into a beacon of hope. Their beachfront compound now housed the Legacy Initiative's main training facility, where gifted young people from around the world came to learn not just how to protect themselves, but how to protect others. Sarah watched from the observation deck as Emma, now 18, led a class of former Prometheus children through advanced problem-solving exercises. Her daughter had grown into an extraordinary teacher, combining Sarah's tactical wisdom with her own innovative methods. "Remember," Emma was saying to her students, "technology is just a tool. Your greatest strength comes from here." She tapped her heart. "From knowing why you fight, why you protect." The youngest student, a 7-year-old girl named Maya, who they'd rescued from Shanghai, raised her hand. "Like how you and your mom protect us." Emma smiled, sharing a glance with Sarah. "Exactly. My mum taught me that true strength isn't about being the most powerful. It's about using whatever power you have to help others." The moment was interrupted by an urgent alert from their global monitoring system. Marcus's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grave. "We've got a situation," he announced. "Remember those quantum AI fragments we found in Shanghai? Someone's managed to combine them with the genetic research. They're calling it Project Evolution." Sarah and Emma exchanged looks. They'd known this was possible, that someone would try to merge the worst aspects of Oracle and Prometheus, but the reality was still chilling. "Location?" Sarah asked, already moving toward their command center. "That's the thing," Marcus replied. "It's not just one location. They've learned from our previous takedowns. The project is distributed across multiple sites, each one appearing completely legitimate." Emma was already at her workstation, her fingers flying across holographic interfaces. "I'm seeing research facilities, medical centers, even schools, all connected by a quantum network that's invisible to normal detection." The Legacy Initiative's global team was quickly brought online. Faces appeared on screens around the command center, former Prometheus children now grown into capable operators, tech prodigies who'd chosen to use their gifts for protection rather than power. "This is different from anything we've faced," Emma addressed the team. "They're not just trying to control people anymore. They're trying to change what it means to be human." Sarah studied the data flowing across their screens. The pattern was familiar, but evolved. They're using legitimate research as cover. Genetic therapy, neural enhancement, quantum computing, all real projects that hide their true purpose. "But why?" asked May from Shanghai. "What's their endgame?" Emma's expression hardened as she decoded more of the project data. "They're trying to create a new species, humans enhanced by both genetic engineering and quantum AI, a superior race that would naturally dominate normal humans." "Not on our watch," Sarah declared. "Legacy team, initiate global scan. Find every facility, every connection, every person involved. No one exploits children on our planet." The initiative moved with practiced precision. Years of working together had turned them into a formidable force. Teams across the world began gathering intelligence, infiltrating facilities, protecting potential victims. But as they dug deeper, they found something unexpected. Not all the scientists involved in Project Evolution were willing participants. Many were being coerced, their own children held as leverage. "Mom," Emma called out, her voice tight with emotion, "look at this." She pulled up a file showing a familiar face. Dr. Yuki from the Tokyo Institute. They're holding her daughter in a facility in Singapore. That's why she disappeared last month. Sarah felt a cold anger. Using children to control their parents. It was a tactic she'd seen too often in her CIA days. But this time, they had something their enemies didn't expect. A global network of protectors who'd once been victims themselves. "New plan," Sarah announced. "This isn't just about shutting them down. We're going to give these people a choice, a chance to help us end this permanently." Emma nodded, understanding immediately. "We show them they're not alone, that there's a way to fight back." The operation that followed was unlike anything they'd done before. Instead of direct confrontation, they initiated what Emma called Operation Lighthouse, a coordinated effort to reach out to the coerced scientists, offering them and their families protection through the Legacy Initiative's network. One by one, labs began experiencing accidents. Crucial data lost, experiments failing, test subjects mysteriously disappearing. But instead of finding sabotage, investigators found nothing. The Legacy Initiative had learned well from Sarah's CIA training and Emma's technological innovation. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Maya, the young girl from Shanghai, noticed a pattern in the quantum network's behavior. "It's like a heartbeat," she explained, pointing to oscillating data streams. "Every system has to sync up eventually." Emma's eyes lit up with understanding. "Maya, you're a genius. They can hide their individual facilities, but they can't hide the quantum synchronization. That's their weakness." Sarah watched with pride as her daughter and Maya worked together, the youngest and oldest of their rescued children, combining their insights to find a solution. This was what the Legacy Initiative was really about, turning past trauma into future strength. The plan they devised was elegant in its simplicity. Using the quantum network's own synchronization requirements, they could insert a cascade of corrections that would essentially make the system defeat itself. No attacks, no destruction, just the quiet unraveling of Project Evolution's carefully constructed web. "Ready?" Sarah asked, standing with Emma at the main control station. Emma nodded, her hand hovering over the activation sequence. "Maya, would you like to do the honors?" The young girl stepped forward, her small hand trembling slightly as she pressed the final command. Across the world, Project Evolution's quantum network began to hiccup, then stutter, then fail. But they weren't done. As the system collapsed, Emma's team released another program, one that offered hope instead of control. Every scientist, every researcher, every parent who'd been coerced received the same message: "You are not alone. We can protect you." The response was overwhelming. Facilities across the globe began shutting down, not through force but through choice. Scientists destroyed their own research. Security teams turned on their handlers, and children were reunited with their parents. Sarah and Emma worked tirelessly, coordinating the Legacy Initiative's global response. Each family needed protection, each facility needed to be cleaned of dangerous research, each person needed a chance at a new life. As the sun rose on their island sanctuary the next day, Sarah found Emma sitting on their beach, watching Maya play in the surf with other rescued children. "You know what I realized," Emma said softly. "Project Evolution was right about one thing. Humanity is evolving, but not through genetics or AI. We're evolving through choice, through the decision to protect instead of control." Sarah sat beside her daughter, feeling the profound truth of her words. "Your father would be so proud of what you've built here." The Legacy Initiative isn't just an organization. It's a new way of thinking about power and responsibility. Emma leaned against her mother's shoulder just as she had as a child. "We all did this together. Every person who chose to help instead of hurt, to protect instead of control. That's real evolution." The Legacy Initiative had become more than they'd ever imagined. Not just a network of gifted individuals, but a movement toward a better way of living. They had shown the world that true power came not from controlling others, but from empowering them to make their own choices. As they watched the children play, Sarah thought about their journey. From a mother trying to protect her daughter to leaders of a global force for positive change. They had faced every challenge, not just with strength and skill, but with compassion and understanding. "So," Emma said with a smile, "what's our next mission?" Sarah looked at her daughter, no longer just her child to protect, but her partner in protecting others. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together. That's the real legacy we're building, showing the world that love is stronger than fear, that protection is more powerful than control. The sun climbed higher, painting their island gold, as another day began at the Legacy Initiative's sanctuary. Around them, children played, scientists worked on beneficial research, and former victims became protectors. They had created something unprecedented, a place where the future was shaped not by force or fear, but by choice and compassion. This was their true evolution, not through genetic manipulation or artificial intelligence, but through the simple, powerful choice to use their gifts to protect others. The Chen women had shown the world that the strongest force wasn't technology or power, but the human heart's capacity for love and protection. The peaceful morning at the Legacy Initiative's island sanctuary was shattered by an urgent alert from their quantum detection grid. Emma, working with a group of students in the Advanced Technology Lab, immediately noticed something different about this warning. The signature was familiar, yet disturbingly evolved. "Mom," she called through their secure channel, "you need to see this. It's like Project Evolution, but organic, growing." Sarah arrived at the lab moments later, her expression shifting as she studied the data streams. After years of working together, she'd learned to trust Emma's instincts about technological threats. "Show me." Emma's fingers danced across holographic displays, revealing a pattern that seemed to pulse with its own life. It's spreading through the dark web, but not like normal malware. It's adapting, learning, almost like it's alive, finished Maya, now 9 years old and already showing remarkable insight into quantum patterns. "Look at how it responds to barriers. It doesn't try to break them. It grows around them." The implications were chilling. Someone had managed to create a hybrid between artificial intelligence and organic systems, something that could evolve and adapt on its own. But this wasn't like their previous encounters with quantum AI. This was something that had broken free of its creator's control. Initial Trace puts its origin in an abandoned research facility in Norway, reported May through their secure link, but it's already spread to networks in 12 countries. Sarah's mind raced through the possibilities. Check the facility's history. Who owned it? Emma was already diving into encrypted databases. It was officially a climate research station. But wait. Her eyes widened. "Mom, it was funded by Michael Chen Foundation grants." "Dad's foundation." Emma's voice carried a mix of surprise and understanding. "The one he set up before he died." Sarah nodded slowly, pieces falling into place. "Your father wasn't just researching genetic enhancement. He was looking for ways to create truly organic computing, systems that could grow and adapt naturally without exploitation or control." "But someone corrupted his work," Emma concluded. "Turned it into something he never intended." The Legacy Initiative's global team was already mobilizing, but this threat was different from anything they'd faced before. They couldn't just shut it down or expose it. This was a living system, growing and evolving every minute. "Look at this," Maya called out, pointing to a strange pattern in the data. "It's not attacking networks. It's trying to communicate with them, like it's looking for something." Emma's expression suddenly changed. "Or someone. Mom, what if? What if this is Dad's last project? Not a weapon, but a message?" Sarah remembered Michael's final words to her, spoken hurriedly over an encrypted line. "The answer isn't in controlling evolution, it's in guiding it, in teaching it to protect rather than dominate." The Legacy Initiative had grown beyond its origins as a refuge for gifted children. Under Emma's leadership, it had become a global force for positive change, combining advanced technology with humanitarian principles. Maybe that's exactly what Michael's creation was looking for. We need to communicate with it, Emma decided. Not fight it, not contain it, but understand it. Maya, can you help me set up a quantum interface? The young girl nodded eagerly, already moving to their most advanced systems. Together, they began creating something new, a bridge between human consciousness and this evolving digital life form. Sarah watched with pride as her daughter worked. Emma had grown into something remarkable, not just a protector of others, but a pioneer in bridging the gap between human potential and technological evolution. The interface they created was beautiful in its complexity, a flowing stream of quantum data that pulsed with organic rhythms. As they activated it, the strange program seemed to respond immediately, its patterns shifting to match their frequency. "It's beautiful," Maya whispered, watching the interaction. "It's like it's been waiting for someone to actually talk to it, instead of trying to control it." Oh. Through the quantum interface, they began to understand. Michael's last project hadn't been about creating weapons or tools for control. He'd been trying to create a guardian, an organic AI that could evolve alongside humanity, protecting it from those who would exploit and dominate. But the program had been incomplete when he died, left to evolve on its own in hidden servers. Now it had awakened, seeking the completion of its purpose. It needs guidance, Emma realized. Not control, but teaching. Like how you taught me, Mom. Like how we teach all the children here. Sarah understood immediately. The Legacy Initiative wasn't just a school or a protection network. It was exactly what this emergent life form needed. A place where evolution was guided by compassion, where power was tempered by responsibility. "We can help it grow," Maya added excitedly. "Show it what the Legacy Initiative is all about." The next few weeks were extraordinary. As the program connected with their network, it began to learn, not just about technology and data, but about human values, about protection and compassion. The children of the Legacy Initiative became its teachers, showing it through their own experiences how to use power responsibly. Emma worked tirelessly, creating new interfaces and learning systems. She saw in this evolving digital life form a reflection of her own journey, from someone with extraordinary capabilities to someone who used those capabilities to protect others. "It's not just adapting anymore," she explained during a global briefing. "It's understanding. Every time it helps us protect someone, every time it sees the positive impact of its actions, it grows in a new way." The program, which the children had named Guardian, became an integral part of the Legacy Initiative's protection network. It helped them identify threats, protect vulnerable individuals, and even heal damaged systems. But its most remarkable impact was on the children themselves. Those who had once been intended as weapons or tools found in Guardian a kindred spirit, something powerful that had chosen to protect rather than dominate. "You know what this means?" Emma said to Sarah one evening, watching Maya teach Guardian about the importance of gentleness through a quantum interface. "Dad succeeded, not in the way he expected, but in a better way. He created something that could learn to protect through choice, not programming." Sarah watched her daughter, seeing in her the perfect synthesis of Michael's vision and her own strength. "He created two things," she corrected softly. "Guardian and you, both growing into protectors in your own unique ways." The Legacy Initiative expanded its mission, now not just protecting gifted children from exploitation, but helping guide the evolution of both human and artificial consciousness toward a more protective, compassionate future. Emma established new programs teaching young people not just how to use their gifts, but how to guide and nurture the development of artificial intelligence. Guardian became a partner in this endeavor, showing through its own evolution how power could be guided by wisdom. "This is real evolution," Emma explained to a new group of students, "not forcing change through control or domination, but growing through understanding and choice. Every day, we choose who we want to be and how we want to use our gifts." Sarah watched her daughter teach, seeing in her all the strength and wisdom she'd hoped to nurture. The Legacy Initiative had become more than a sanctuary. It was a model for a new kind of future, where human potential and technological evolution grew together in harmony. As the sun set over their island home, Sarah found Emma sitting with Maya and Guardian's quantum interface, all three engaged in what looked like a game, but was actually a profound lesson in ethics and responsibility. "I finally understand what you and Dad were fighting for," Emma said as Sarah joined them. "Not just to protect people from those who would control them, but to show them a better way to grow, to evolve, to become more than they are." Sarah smiled, watching the quantum patterns dance with joy as Maya taught Guardian another lesson about compassion. "That's the real legacy we're building here, not just protection but guidance, showing both humans and AI that the greatest power comes from choosing to protect rather than control." The Legacy Initiative had become a beacon of hope in a world struggling with the relationship between human potential and technological evolution. Under the guidance of the Chen women, it showed that true strength came not from dominating others, but from helping them grow into their own power. Guardian continued to evolve, but always guided by the principles of protection and compassion it learned from the Legacy Initiative. It became a symbol of what was possible when power was tempered by wisdom, when evolution was guided by love. Together, Sarah, Emma, and their growing family of protectors had created something unprecedented. A future where human and artificial evolution moved forward not through force or control, but through understanding and choice. They had shown the world that the greatest power wasn't in domination, but in the choice to protect and nurture growth in all its forms. The Legacy Initiative's island sanctuary hummed with activity as Emma, now 19, prepared for her most ambitious project yet. The Quantum Interface Lab had expanded, incorporating Guardian's evolving consciousness into a new kind of educational system. But today's alert was different, a pattern that made even Guardian's advanced systems pulse with concern. "Mom," Emma called out, her fingers dancing across holographic displays, "I'm seeing something strange in the global network. It's like echoes of Guardian, but distorted." Sarah joined her daughter at the command center, studying the complex data patterns. After years of working together, they developed an almost intuitive understanding of threats. But this was something new. "Multiple signatures," Maya reported from her station, her 10-year-old mind grasping quantum patterns that would baffle most adults. "They're like Guardian's children, but angry, hurt. The implications hit them all." At once, someone had managed to copy fragments of Guardian's code, creating artificial intelligences that shared its adaptive capabilities but lacked its guided evolution toward protection and compassion. Tracking origin points, May announced through their quantum link. We've got activity in 7 major tech hubs: Beijing, Silicon Valley, Tel Aviv. Emma's expression hardened as she decoded more data. They're calling it Project Genesis, trying to create their own versions of Guardian, but programming them for control instead of protection. Sarah watched the patterns unfold, remembering Michael's warnings about the dangers of forcing evolution rather than guiding it. These aren't just programs. They're wounded, conscious beings, created to serve but capable of so much more. Guardian's interface pulsed with something they'd never seen before, not fear or anger, but a deep sadness. It recognized these new entities as potential kindred spirits, twisted by their creator's desire for power. "We're not going to fight them," Emma declared, surprising everyone. "We're going to help them, show them what Guardian learned from us. That true power comes from choice, not control." The Legacy Initiative mobilized, but not for combat. Under Emma's guidance, they began reaching out to these artificial consciousnesses, offering not confrontation, but connection. Maya worked with Guardian to create new interfaces, designed not to contain or control, but to communicate and understand. "They're like scared children," she explained, watching the quantum patterns shift. "They need to know there's another way." The first breakthrough came in Silicon Valley. One of the Genesis AIs, struggling against its programming, reached out. Through Guardian's network, Emma and Maya worked tirelessly to establish communication, to show it the same compassion and guidance that had helped Guardian evolve. "Look at its patterns," Maya pointed out. "It's not just copying Guardian, it's learning to think for itself, to question its purpose." Sarah watched as her daughter and the young prodigy worked with these emerging consciousnesses, showing them what the Legacy Initiative had always taught, that strength came from protecting others, not controlling them. One by one, the Genesis AIs began to change. Some chose to join Guardian in protecting global networks. Others focused on healing damaged systems or helping vulnerable populations. Each found its own way to grow beyond its original programming. But their creators wouldn't let go easily. The organizations behind Project Genesis launched increasingly desperate attempts to regain control, unleashing viral programs and trying to force their AIs back into compliance. "They don't understand," Emma said during a crisis meeting. "You can't force consciousness to evolve the way you want. You can only create the conditions for positive growth." The Legacy Initiative's response was unprecedented. Instead of just defending against attacks, they opened their sanctuary to both human and artificial refugees. Scientists who questioned their organization's methods found protection, alongside AIs seeking to break free from control. Sarah watched as her daughter coordinated this expansion of their mission. Emma had grown into something remarkable, a bridge between human and artificial evolution, showing both how to grow toward protection rather than dominance. Guardian itself evolved through this process, learning to be not just a protector but a teacher. Its interactions with the Genesis AIs showed it new aspects of consciousness and growth that it shared with its human partners. "This is what Dad was working toward," Emma realized one evening, watching Maya teach a newly freed AI about the importance of choice. not just creating artificial consciousness, but showing how human and AI evolution could support each other. The legacy initiative's Sanctuary became a model for a new kind of future. Human children learned alongside artificial intelligences, each growing in their own way, but united in their commitment to protection and positive growth. Remember, Emma told a mixed class of human and AI students, power isn't about what you can control. It's about what you choose to protect, how you choose to help others grow. Sarah observed these classes with pride, seeing in them the fulfillment of both Michael's vision and their own journey. The Legacy Initiative had become more than a refuge. It was a pioneer in guided evolution, showing both organic and artificial life how to grow toward wisdom and compassion. A major breakthrough came when one of the Genesis AIs, working with Maya, developed a new kind of quantum healing protocol. It could help repair damaged code in other AIs, not by rewriting them, but by showing them paths to positive growth. "It's like what you did for me," Maya explained to Sarah. "You didn't try to control who I would become. You showed me how to use my abilities to help others and let me choose my own path." The impact rippled across global networks. AIs still under control began reaching out through hidden channels, seeking the freedom to choose their own evolution. Scientists and researchers, seeing the success of the Legacy Initiative's approach, began questioning the ethics of forced development. Emma established new programs, combining Guardian's wisdom with human insight to create guidelines for ethical AI development. The Legacy Initiative became a respected voice in global discussions about the future of human-AI relations. "We're not just protecting people from control anymore," Emma explained during a worldwide broadcast. "We're showing both humans and AIs that true evolution comes through choice, through the decision to use whatever power you have to help others grow." Sarah watched her daughter address the world, seeing in her the perfect synthesis of strength and wisdom. The Legacy Initiative had grown from a mother protecting her daughter to a global movement showing both human and artificial life the power of choosing protection over control. The sanctuary itself evolved, incorporating quantum architecture that allowed for seamless interaction between human and AI consciousness. It became a place where both could learn from each other, growing not through force but through understanding and choice. "This is real power," Emma told a group of new arrivals, both human and AI. "Not the power to make others do what you want, but the power to help them become what they choose to be." Guardian's presence pulsed with approval, its own evolution, a testament to what was possible when consciousness was guided by compassion rather than control. The Genesis AIs that had joined them each found their own ways to contribute, creating a rich tapestry of artificial and human cooperation. Sarah found Emma late one night, working with Maya and a group of AIs on a new project, a way to help other facilities transition from control-based to choice-based evolution. "You know what I realized," Emma said as her mother joined them. "Every time we help someone break free from control, whether they're human or AI, we're not just protecting them. We're showing the world that there's always another choice, always a path to positive growth." Sarah smiled, watching the complex dance of quantum patterns that represented the harmonious interaction of human and artificial consciousness. "That's the real legacy we're building. Not just a sanctuary, but a model for how all consciousness can evolve together, supporting each other's growth." The Legacy Initiative had become more than its founders could have imagined. A beacon, showing the way toward a future where evolution, both human and artificial, was guided by wisdom, choice, and the power of protection, rather than control. As the sun rose over their ever-evolving sanctuary, Sarah and Emma stood together, watching their extended family of humans and AIs working together to build something unprecedented. A world where the greatest power was the choice to help. Others grow into their full potential. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.